season approaches, we've got to go through and update our Dynasty wide receiver rankings. So we've got some risers, we've got some fallers. We're going to talk about all that today. Do us a huge favor before we jump into these rankings. If you enjoy the channel, please drop a like on the video, and please make sure you are subscribed. These two things help us out more than you ever know. We appreciate all of you so much for watching and supporting us. We could not do it without you. Those two things really help us. And if you want one of these player blueprints, flockfantasy.com/domain. The annual Mother Flocker tier gets you a team blueprint for your Dynasty team. It's going to give you a good idea of your team build, a good idea where your team sits right now, and then a multi-year plan for your Dynasty team to help dominate your leagues. That's what's coming there. All of the tiers on Flock Fantasy get you all of our articles, rankings, databases, our Discord, into our listener leagues. So make sure you're heading over to flockfantasy.com/domain and using code domain for 30% off the entire site. Dynasty wide receiver rankings starting in the S tier. This is... I mean, I think since we've existed, we've done Dynasty wide receiver rankings videos probably 6 or 7 times now.
Yeah.
We're about a year old, and this has just never changed. So I always start with this. I will continue to say the same thing. Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson is maybe the best wide receiver ever to live. Like, he is so good. He could end up being the best ever. He's consistently putting up 1,800 yards plus a season. He is only 23. Maybe now he's 24. I think he's still 23 years old.
He's probably 24.
He's probably 24 now. Happy birthday. He is still very young. That's my point. And he is going to continue to dominate. He's going to continue to get an absurd amount of targets and run an absurd amount of routes. The production is going to follow. Justin Jefferson is absolutely the top wide receiver in Dynasty Fantasy Football. And then in the same tier behind him is going to be Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase, the 4 words we like to use for every Bengals receiver. He's tied to Joe Burrow. Yeah, well, he is. And not only that, he's an elite talent. He's an elite field-stretching wide receiver. He has after-catch ability like I've never seen in my life. The dude will just break through a million tackles and get to the it's special, and it scores a ton of fantasy points. So because of that, and because of his age and because of his situation, he has to be ranked here in the S tier. That you've already heard. Let's drop down to the A tier and get into the nitty-gritty here.
Yeah, we got CeeDee Lamb, someone who has finally proven that he deserves to be ranked this highly in Dynasty. Last year he came out and he gave us 17.7 points per game. He had 80 yards per game, essentially half a reception, touchdown, and he got almost every valuable target in the Dallas Cowboys offense. He's going to continue to do that this year with Dalton Schultz leaving, and who else is there at this point? Noah Brown left. There's really no one there to get receptions. And
Ferguson,
Brandon Cooks.
Oh yeah, Brandon Cooks to join. Yeah. Okay.
I was being sarcastic.
The point is, CeeDee Lamb is going to continue to dominate in Dallas. He gave us dang near 18 points per game last year, and I expect the same from him this year, and we all do. That's why I have him ranked this highly. Behind him, we have Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson hasn't proven he has the elite production yet, but that's a huge but like small yet at the same time, because Garrett Wilson was a rookie last year. He gave us 1,000 yards, and he had some of the worst quarterback play we have ever seen.
Literally ever seen.
Zach Wilson, pretty much. I mean, that says enough. You guys get the point. Garrett Wilson is going to get targets out the wazoo this next year, and he's a candidate to get 1,500 plus yards as a rookie. I mean, as a sophomore in the NFL. Buy in early. Everyone else is doing it, and you don't want to miss out on Garrett Wilson. Behind him, we have A.J. Brown, who's now tied to an elite quarterback in Jalen Hurts. There were a lot of questions with Jalen Hurts. So when A.J. Brown went to the Eagles, a lot of people started to short him. If you bought A.J. Brown, you're feeling really good about that, because he also had 17.6 points per game last year. He had 88 yards per game and 8.5 targets. On a team with Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert, there's a lot of D's in that offense.
Yeah.
Wow.
These nuts.
There you go. A.J. Brown, absolutely a beast, one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, a top 5 talent, to be honest, and there's nothing that's going to change there.
Yeah,
I couldn't resist.
Heading up the B tier here is going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown, the slot god. We know how it goes at this point. 10th in points per game last season, 16.7 points per game. And this is still a rising offense from a talent perspective. You got Jameson Williams that's, hopefully going to be ready to go by week 6 if, he doesn't gamble on the facility again. And Jahmyr Gibbs, who they just drafted 12th overall this season. I think if anything, those guys are going to help out Amon-Ra St. Brown to continue to be the dominant receiver in the Lions offense. I don't think Jameson Williams is going to hurt that. If anything, maybe I'd be a little bit concerned with Jahmyr Gibbs and how much is he going to take. But again, they play different positions. It's not, so we'll see. But
and Amon-Ra was like 4th in yards after the catch last year.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yes, which is great to see. That's what we want to see from a slot receiver. We love slot receivers because they're very safe. They have a very high floor because they get a majority of the targets in the offense. And then we want to see what they do after the catch. Amon-Ra is elite at both, which means he's going to be one of the safest wide receivers that you can draft in Dynasty. He's going to be doing this for a very, very long time. Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to be next year. And he is apparently, according to a lot of people in fantasy, the third best fantasy asset at the wide receiver position for the Seattle Seahawks this year. We'll flip that around and say JSN is the best fantasy option this season. Yes, over Tyler Lockett. Yes, over DK Metcalf, who is the primary field stretcher in that offense. JSN is going to take the NFL world by storm this season, and he will establish himself as the alpha wide receiver there. You can count on it. Next up is Chris Olave, who we are big fans of going into this year. We were big fans last season. Avery was tooting his horn more than any of us, and he got it right in an offense that was pretty depleted and had Andy Dalton starting most of the season. Chris Olave kicked some booty. And yeah, he kind of ended the season a little rough from a production standpoint, but what do you expect from a rookie wide receiver? He is an elite level talent. He played with Jackson Smith-Njigba and Garrett Wilson in college and still got his own. I mean, absolutely incredible. He's the alpha wide receiver there. Not worried about Michael Thomas that much. He's aging. He's coming off of like 3 straight seasons of injury. So how much can you really count on him? Chris Olave there all day. Jalen Waddle coming up next. He's the wide receiver 2 in his own offense playing behind Tyreek Hill, but he is younger and he is still an elite level talent. They heavily invested in him there. As Tyreek Hill continues to decline in value, Jalen Waddle will continue to increase in value. And we're going to count on that. We're going to keep drafting him right here in the B tier, but he will be behind the alpha wide receivers in Olave, JSN, and ARSB.
Yeah, and in the C tier, we're going to start here with Tyreek Hill, a guy that we have literally been begging you to buy in Dynasty Fantasy Football because
he could be higher.
Yeah. He honestly could be higher. And honestly, I mean, there's an argument to be made he should be over Waddle. He's going to outproduce Waddle over the next 3 years. And we play Dynasty in 3-year windows when you're looking at the 3-year window for Tyreek Hill because he said he's going to retire. And everybody's like, oh no, I have to sell him. That is in 2025. Like, I could be dead by then. And honestly, Tyreek Hill could still be scoring 20 points per game on the field and probably will be. So with Tyreek Hill, you know what you're going to get. He has consistently been the best wide receiver in the NFL in the past really 6 or 7 years. Like, I mean, he has been absolutely dynamic. He proved last year he didn't need Mahomes to do it. He belongs up here. And so does Stephon Diggs. Look, Stephon Diggs, when he's not playing football, usually the publicity around Stephon Diggs is not positive. So the longer we go without playing football, the less valuable Stephon Diggs typically becomes. That is just the truth of every offseason with Stephon Diggs and the Buffalo Bills. With Stephon Diggs, do not forget that he is a guy who came out and completely dominated last year. He's going to score a lot of fantasy points for the next couple years as well. Not to mention the 4 words, except we changed 2 of them. He's tied to Josh Allen, which is a pretty good person to be tied to. And he remains really the only elite target in the Buffalo Bills offense, at least until Dalton Kincaid can prove himself to be that as well, which I think Dalton Kincaid has that upside. But he is a rookie, and James Cook is small and slow. I mean, so... Sorry, James Cook. I didn't mean it. But what I mean is Stephon's pretty much there on his own. He's isolated, and he should be there. Devonta Smith, we got a lot of crap on our last rankings video because everybody said we had him too low. We did move him up a little bit because we do think that we agree with you guys. I do think from a wide receiver standpoint in terms of talent, I think he is the best wide receiver too in the NFL. I'd put him above Waddle and T. For fantasy purposes, however, the Dolphins offense really only has Tyreek and Waddle, and the Eagles offense, they have A.J. Brown and Devonta and Dallas Goedert and DeAndre Swift. And so you're looking around, there's a lot of mouths to feed in that offense. You got all those Ds. And this D, Devonta Smith, he's very talented. We were super high on him last year. We begged you to buy him. You did. Then he went way up in value. He's cemented himself as a very, very good fantasy asset, and we've got him ranked here. Cooper Kupp's going to be next. With Cooper Kupp, oh man, he's risky because he's old and the offense is terrible. And Matt Stafford's shoulder is bad. But at the same time, the dude can score 20 points at the drop of a hat. I mean, you look down last year, he was averaging 22 points per game last year through, I think 4 or 5 games that he played. The man is ridiculous. So, even in a bad offense, we think Cooper Kupp can prevail. Does he have a ton of long-term value? Probably not. But short-term, he could be the highest scoring wide receiver in fantasy this year. Like, absolutely. And so could Devontae Adams. A lot of people want to short Devontae Adams because of Jimmy G. Jimmy G, not really a step down from Derek Carr when you look at both of their advanced analytics from the last 2 years. I mean, Jimmy G, he was able to support Deebo Samuel as a wide receiver 1. George Kittle as a tight end one. I was just looking at those stats today. I mean, the dude is absolutely capable of being a field manager and also supporting guys that are going to produce at a one position level from a skill position standpoint. So with Devontae Adams, he absolutely deserves to be up here. He's probably going to be giving you the dude's not going to be lower than wide receiver 5 this year. Like there's no chance. So he still has some value and he deserves to be over some of these young guns that are found in the next tier.
Yeah, here in the D tier, we're starting out with Drake London. Drake London happens to have a cap ceiling. He's playing with Desmond Ridder and an offense that runs the ball a lot. They drafted Bijan Robinson and they plan to run the ball more. But Drake London has the best draft capital of a wide receiver since Jamar Chase. He was drafted at the 108 last year and he was a really good prospect as a rookie. The guy was able to give us 866 yards and a 29.4% target share. So he really has a chokehold on all the targets in the Falcons offense, and we don't expect that to change. Who else did they bring in this year? Nobody. Kyle Pitts is coming back, yes. He was hurt towards the end of last year, but Drake London is going to continue to get those targets, and as he matures in his NFL career, he will start to produce more, and we saw even in stretches last year his ability to produce. I mean, week 1 last year, 12.4 points per game. Week 2, 24.6. Week 3, 14.4. So in stretches, he was able to give us productive fantasy weeks. He just has a cap ceiling. Behind him, T. Higgins has maybe the most cap ceiling of all, playing next to Jamar Chase. And yes, like you said, he's tied to Joe Burrow, so that's why he is this high. T. Higgins drafted early second round back a few years ago, and he's a very good wide receiver in his own right. He's a good wide receiver too in the NFL, and he gives you around 1,000 yards and 6 or 7 touchdowns every year. He's going to continue to do that, but the problem is any given week, he seems to be leaving the game early and capping his own ceiling or just not playing. He hasn't missed that many games in his NFL career, but last year he only gave us 13.1 points per game, and there's what if he had played full games and he would have scored 17 points per game? But we're not here for the would have or could have or should have. We're here for what he did, and what he did was gave you 26 wide receiver 26 in points per game last year. So
that's a wide receiver 3, by the way.
Yes, he has a high ceiling. Jeez. Yes, he has a high floor. That's what I'm trying to say, right?
Yeah.
And he has the ability to produce highly, but he just hasn't done it this last season.
It makes me so mad.
Yeah.
In the F tier, we're going to start out with a couple rookies here. Again, Quentin Johnson and Jordan Addison, who went back-to-back with Jackson Smith and Jigba. So QJ landing in one of the most ideal situations that you could really dream of for a developing young wide receiver. We don't think from a fantasy perspective that, honestly, I think Jordan Addison this year outproduces Quentin Johnson.
Yep.
In the long term, we're going to rank Quentin Johnson in Dynasty over Addison because his ceiling is going to be so much higher. He's not playing behind a Justin Jefferson, an alpha wide receiver. QJ is that alpha wide receiver of the future for Justin Herbert, who just got a long-term deal with the Chargers. So huge fan of him as a talent coming out of TCU. We're excited to see what he can do, and even though we don't think he'll blow us away in fantasy this season, he could have some pretty impressive flashes this year sooner than people may think. Jordan Addison, we think, is ready and has a higher floor than really any of these rookie wide receivers with the exception of JSN. And with him, I mean, we're not big into training camp and preseason hype, but if you watched that first preseason game and his sideline catch that they said was a no catch, but you saw the replay, it absolutely was. I mean, that's the type of stuff you're getting right away immediately from Jordan Addison. That is textbook wide receiver play from a rookie wide receiver. He is going to take the NFL world by storm, just like JSN is. I think this season he's taking all of those vacated targets from Adam Thielen over the last multiple years, and he's going to have a higher ceiling than I think many people believe behind Justin Jefferson in an offense that's going to pass the ball a ton because Dalvin Cook's gone. Deebo Samuel is going to be next here. He's being shorted, honestly, for literally no reason. People just decided to short him after he had, granted, a disappointing season where he did get injured towards the end of the year, but this was going into a season where he held out because he wanted a contract extension. They gave it to him, and he came out and said this past offseason that he wasn't focused enough on football and getting better and getting his body right, and it showed on the football field. He's not worried about that this season. I'm going to count on him. I'm going to bet on him, and I think he's going to be one of the best fantasy producing assets in that offense like he was 2 seasons ago when he finished as wide receiver 3. He's one of the best gadget guys in the NFL. Shanahan's going to get the best out of him. Christian Watson next. Look, we've got a bunch of questions with Christian Watson and DK Metcalf. I think they both could serve long-term kind of the same sort of role from an NFL perspective as more of a field stretcher, maybe not your on paper, alpha wide receiver, but I think Christian Watson, I mean, he had a historic run last season, and granted it was with Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers did have a down year. He's playing with Jordan Love this season. He's going into his second year where he's going to continue to develop as a wide receiver, and he could absolutely be the alpha there. We're excited to see what he could do this season, but his touchdown rate's going to go way down. DK going to be the last guy in this tier. Look, from a fantasy points perspective this season, he's the second best receiver at best. You could argue third. If you look at his splits over the last 4 seasons, 900 yards, 1,300, 967, 1048 for 7, 10, 12, and 6 touchdowns. That's about 1,000 yards and 7 or 8 touchdowns every single year. You can count on it. He's pretty consistent. We love him as an NFL talent, but that's what you're getting from him in fantasy, and that's never going to change. And the JSN pick proved that.
I will say 20's love for DK, but I hope it makes sense. Like, I mean, honestly, you can't give me some concrete evidence over the last couple of years that tell me that DK should.
I mean, all the guys over him either have an elite quarterback they're tied to, or just higher ceilings being in a wide receiver alone.
And he's in a big tier too. Like, I mean, he's in a tier where he could be as high as 16, and I think that's pretty generous for DK, especially with the addition of JSN. So just thought I'd address that. And then the G tier, the last tier here, we're going to start with Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman, and with Michael Pittman. Yeah, I did it. With Michael Pittman, he was playing with literally nobody last year. I mean, Matt Ryan, Sam Ellinger, who was the other guy that was the quarterback?
Nick Foles.
Oh, my gosh.
Nick Foles. And he still had how many targets?
Remember when we were at the Chargers
140.
game when Nick Foles just kept throwing those interceptions?
That was
so funny.
That was the worst football game I've ever been to.
And the Chargers sucked that game,
and Justin Herbert was awful. Like, I literally, there was nothing to root for.
Anyways.
Chris Godwin's going to be next with Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin's one of the best receivers in the NFL. He will continually be shorted in fantasy. We will continually say he's underrated.
He's not old.
He's not old. He is good. He is a target hog. He is a yards after catch beast. He is playing in a bad offense this year, granted. However, if you're playing in a good offense, you could rank him anywhere from the C tier up. I mean, you're really talking about that. But we'll be conservative with Godwin because of his situation. Do remember he's one of the best receivers in the NFL. Zay Flowers, look, you can make the argument that Zay Flowers should be in the F tier with a lot of his rookie counterparts. He has just as good draft capital. He could, honestly, he's situationally has a higher ceiling than Jordan Addison does. I mean, if Zay Flowers really does, I mean, you've seen the route running ability from Zay Flowers, so we know what kind of skills he has. But if he really does kind of untap his potential or tap into his potential, idiot.
Yes.
If I got it. I got there. If he does tap into his potential and, Odell Beckham's old like we think and Rashad Bateman's bad like we think, then Zay Flowers has as high a ceiling as anybody in these last 3 tiers, honestly. So a little low for Flowers, but again, we're going to kind of wait and see. He's the least proven from a college production standpoint out of the rookie wide receivers, so we'll see what he does in the NFL. It'll be an interesting year for Flowers. Amari Cooper is going to be next. Amari Cooper, yes, he is old.
29,
old. However, last year, he was a wide receiver 1. This year, probably going to be a wide receiver 1. He's tied to Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, perfectly capable of supporting a wide receiver 1, and Amari Cooper has not shown any signs of slowing down yet, so we'll continue to rank him here. And finally, Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson obviously had a very good year last year outside of red zone production. This year, we would project Deontay Johnson probably to get 6 or more touchdowns. So because of that, Deontay Johnson going to score at a higher clip this year in fantasy football. He's still decently young. We don't love Steelers receivers. However, with Deontay Johnson, he's such a target hog. In PPR leagues, you absolutely have to keep him on this top 24 wide receivers list. And that's going to wrap it up. So let us know where you agree, where you disagree. Obviously, lots of wide receiver depth in the NFL right now. It's become one of the most important positions to teams. And because of that, and because of the talent that's coming from the college levels now, I mean, there are tons of fantasy relevant wide receivers. So let us know what you think in the comments. Do us a huge favor and like and subscribe before you leave. Flockfantasy.com/domain was all of our exclusive content, including a team blueprint. You want a team blueprint? The annual Mother Flocketry will get you that. Use our code domain. You get 30% off. We'd love to see you over there. We'd love for you to join the community. Thanks for watching this video, and we will see you later.